Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I'm actually here with two videos that I'm now merging together. So this video is kind of long, but it's right up there with my 5 cards, 1 kit. So, this is actually 2 blog hops that are going to be put together. So I'm going to showcase here some glimmer plates by Becca Feeken, and it's part of her Gilded Age collection. These are absolutely beautiful. The design that sits on this one, and you can have those other pieces cut out. I am loving these 2 flourishes, and here's what makes this one really interesting. It's the frame that comes with it. It's in 2 pieces, so if you cut the cardstock down, you can have one side have that clouded edge. It's just really cool. Now, I'm not going to show you in this video how to use the Glimmer hot foil system. I do have other videos with that, and I'll make sure that they are linked below. Or maybe they'll be up in the corner there so that you'll be able to get to them. For this one, for these 2 pieces here, I'm going to be using my black foil. It's simply black. I just wanted these to... They're going to be on Desert Storm cardstock. So I wanted these aged. So when I rolled these through my Platinum 6, I moved really quick. I didn't go slow. Usually I go at an even pace so that to make sure that I've got a solid image foiled. These, I kind of moved quicker because I didn't want it to be perfect, if that makes sense. I wanted to have an age look, so to speak. So now in turn, now remember, when we put our foils, and I forget this, it's hysterical. You want to make sure that in this case, for these foils in this system, the foil side, pretty side, is faced down onto the plate. Okay, it's not facing up at you. Now, this foil here that I'm using is called Aurora. I cannot pronounce that name. So it's like a gold iridescent. It's absolutely beautiful. So I just wanted that frame. Now, I'm okay that this is not perfectly set. There are some nested dies that actually match part of Becca Feeken's collection, where she actually has inserts that go with those nested frames that are glimmer plates. So I had shown them in another video. Again, I'll link that below or up in the right hand corner there. So now I'm going to do all of my die cutting on the pieces. So of course for the flourishes, I have the actual dies that surround them. I love it when that happens. Again, not that you cannot, I mean, it takes practice to get your piece centered, but it can be done with a few tips and tricks. So now that I've got my pieces cut out, what I really do like about that nested die is the largest one is the side of your card, is the size of an A2 card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now mine are top folding. So when you place that base down, your design down onto your card base, you have those white corners that are showing. So I really kind of like that. It's different. I'm going to use the 1 die, and I'm going to create my cutout because that's going to fit perfectly in that center frame. Now I could have just stamped right in the center of that, my sentiment, but I wanted to have some dimension. So I'm going to use the sentiment with sympathy, and this comes from the Fun Stamper's Journey stamp set, inside and outside. So of course this would be the outside. It's a really nice stamp set. It thinks of both. I'm going to use my Vintage Photo Distress ink to go around the outside of this. I'm kind of going with a heavy hand. I really want this to stand out, and I'm going to prop that up using some foam squares. And that's really all we need to do for that card. Again, when you use the glimmer system, it adds so much that you don't have to do too many steps. It's really already done for you. But I do love the gold. I mean, usually we see it in the silver iridescent, but this just has a gold tint to it. And it's really pretty. It's spelled A-U-R-A. Aurora. I think. I don't know. I don't think so. Aura. I don't know. Let's just move on. So now I'm going to create 2 panels using the same exact colors. I'm using milled lavender, and I'm going to use aged mahogany and Victorian velvet. Now this color scheme I actually saw watching one of Christina Werner's videos when she did all of those color combinations for the Distress Oxides, and I immediately fell in love with this one. So thank you. So I'm gonna keep on blending these. I just like when it ends up. I mean, the way that this blend looks. And again, I'm doing 2 of them, and there's a reason for that, and here they are. So the one is actually going to be the design base, where these 2 flourishes are going to sit. And then I'm going to use the die to cut them out. Now remember, the frame die is in 2 pieces, but that's okay. All you have to do is just connect them in the corners, and then when you use your washi tape or painter's tape, whatever tape you use, you want to make sure you just go over the corners. And you can see I get a beautiful frame section. Now the flourishes will nestle right into those areas that are pushing out of the corners. But again, I do want to come in with my vintage photo just to give a little bit of shading and to add to that distress look that I have with the black foil. And I'm going to do the same with the smaller flourish. Once they're done, I'm going to actually glue them down using my art glitter glue. Now, the sentiment that I'm using comes from one of their Spellbinders expressions. It's called Hugs. These are only available in a store, so I will see if I can find a store and link to it, but they are not available through their shop or other online shops. You have to physically go into a store for these. So you can see I took the other panel, and when I cut out the sentiment, I reversed the shading. So now the dark's at the top and the light's going down to the bottom. I wanted that to stand out. I used the vintage photo on the shadow using the same Desert Storm that I did for my flourishes. And I'm going to adhere this in the center. So these are going to be in the 2 in the bottom left, the top right, and then the Hugs is going to sit in the center. I didn't want the flourishes propped up. I wanted them to be flat onto the design area. And we're just going to set those in place. Now, with the Hugs, I wanted to add You Give the Best, because with this set, you get some little tiny sentiments that go with it. And then I'm going to prop up the Hugs using my foam squares. Again, just to give this that dimension to come off of the backdrop. So I really like the way that looks, the way, you know, you make the 2 panels and then you flip. You know the colors are going to match. You know it's not going to be offset. The black ink that I stamped with matches the black foil. So you always want to try to have those colors. Now my card base is still a standard A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But I did choose an ivory. I didn't want to go with a white. I wanted to keep the colors muted. We go with a white, it'll brighten them up. Go with an ivory, it'll keep them muted just a little bit. Again, my opinion. So those are the 2 cards where we focused on the collection called Gilded Age and it's by Becca Feeken. So now let's move on to the second one, and this one's called Happy, and this is by Sharyn Sowell. So this is the glimmer plate, so I will have one glimmer project, and I just think it's beautiful. The branch with the two birds, and then of course, Oh Happy Day. And then the next two are actually dies. So this is Celebrate with Cake. And you can see you've got this great cake design with the cutouts. And then you've got the ability to use the outside to create the solid, to create your colors. You can make some flowers and everything else to help celebrate with your cake. This one is called It's Your Day. And again, some flowers, some flourishes, a nice scalloped circle, and then a banner where you can also layer like we can with the cake. So let's make our 3 cards with these. Now remember, this is called the Happy Collection. So these are the 2 colors of foil I'm going to use, called Sky Bright, and the other one is called Prism. Now this is like the silver iridescent, where the other one, Aura, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I have a problem with that word. That's got a gold tint to it. I am in love with this Sky Bright. This color is like an aqua blue. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I knew that's what I wanted this branch with the birds to be done in. So I'm just trimming down this panel, and then I also trimmed down a piece of black cardstock so that that could sit in the background. The panel that I foiled on is ivory, and I am going to set these 2 layers down on a standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is a side folding now, and it is white. I took the Oh Happy Day, and that's where I used the prism. And then I did not use a cutter for those. I literally used my long shears to cut them, and I'm going to grab my white gel pen, and I'm just going to scribble around these letters. It's like when you see with art journals, we scribble around what we put in there when it comes to our quote. And then I always add these little side scribbles around just to make it, I guess, messier. I don't know. It's a habit. I do it with my balloon strings too. So once they're all set, I will prop them up with my foam squares. I'm going to set the O in the upper left-hand corner, and then I'm going to place the Happy down next and make that look like it's coming off of a branch, and then Day will go down in the bottom right-hand corner. And then once that's set, I did pull out, I pulled out my glossy eggshell pearls by The Little Things by Lucy's Cards, and I'm going to place them all over these branches. These pearls were the consistent accent through my 3 cards for the Happy Collection. And I'm just placing these around just to give it a little bit more of an accent off of the branch, since it is one solid foiled piece, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. Now, you could have just foiled also the Oh Happy Day straight on to where you have the branch as well. I just like to add dimension. And I am still working, you know, again, getting some tips and tricks to make sure that my sentiments are nice and straight. And that's our first card for the Happy Collection. So let's get into some die cutting. So I did do a lot of my die cutting ahead of time. I'm using this panel that I made in a prior video, and I'm just going to cut out some of those panels to go behind my cutouts. This way I chose 3 different areas from the inked smush background that I had created, which will give me some different effects going up my cake. It all won't be one color. Now, you can certainly use solid colors for your backgrounds. You don't have to use anything that's variegated or ink smushed like I did. You could create a background where there is a variegation, like a rainbow, so you could have a rainbow effect going in the back of your cake, whatever you would want to do. I'm going to use my glue to adhere my last piece on top of my panel. And that one's just a little bit different because I got a little bit more of the specks going on in there. And I just think it adds a nice touch in the background. I used my Nina Desert Storm to cut out the cake stand. I did want that brown because my base that all of these die cuts will be sitting on, it will be ivory. And I'm going to use the hem stitch rectangle to cut this out. I just had a few of those little circles still stuck in my card, so I just used my Tool-in-One by Spellbinders to quick pop them out. I'm going to play with the placement, and I don't want the cake purposely placed straight. I actually want it to be on an angle, the different layers, in a playful way, so to speak. So that's the way that we're going to set. I'm using my Enjoy die. Now again, this is from a set that you can only get in a retail store. And it is by Spellbinders, and it's called Enjoy Expressions. Again, if I can find a retail store that's currently selling it, I will make sure that I link to it. But again, it's not available through Spellbinders, only through retail stores. I used the ivory and a dark brown to set my sentiment in place, and that's going to sit right in between the cake layers. I will prop that up using some foam squares because my cake layers will also be propped, and that Enjoy will actually straddle the bottom and the middle layer. So we'll just make sure that it's all even. So we're going to make sure that those are in place. Now again, I did place the double-sided foam directly in the center because the top two I wanted to overlap just a little bit. Sorry guys, for some reason I'm losing my voice here. Well, it could be because I'm doing a lot of voiceovers today, so I do apologize. So I'm going to set the middle layer and the top layer, and now here comes the sentiment. I'm going to make sure that's sitting across those two layers. And now what we're going to do is I want to make some flowers. So I'm going to grab my foam pad, and I'm going to grab some of these die cuts, and I'm going to ink. I'm going to use a finger dauber, and I'm going to use Festive Berries, and I'm going to go around the edges. I'm going to go around the centers, just to give it some shading. And I do want it to be somewhat harsh. I don't want it to be so blended, but I do want those harsh lines. I'm going to use a tool that has a rounded edge. Now you can certainly use a pen if it's got a rounded edge, or anything that has that rounded edge to do what I was doing, and that's to just go around in the circle, break those fibers so that these pieces curl up on themselves. So I'm going to place the smaller ones inside the larger ones that I had used the finger dauber, but to me they looked very square. So I'm going to grab eventually 3 more of those larger petals and do the same thing, but I'm not going to add any ink to those. So you can see, but I do want them curved. So I'm just going to curve them to create the dimension, and then they are going to be placed right into the center, and of course offset. So now I've got a rounded looking flower. It wasn't looking right. It was looking like a square. So we had to change that. So now I'm just going to set those. Now what's great is since they have the hole in the center, you could use some beautiful brads to adhere these to your card. I'm just going to use some glue dots, and I'm going to set them in place. I'm also going to use some small glue dots for my leaves, and I have the 2 different shades. Now the one set of leaves that I have die cut up there the 3-leaf stem. I don't use those. I may use one. But I was really just focused down onto the corner just to make sure that area was all filled up. And you can see the two-tone of the leaves. I think it helps to add shading. Now, I could have used an ink to shade on my lighter leaves. But I really liked using just the two tones. You know, just because you're using cardstock to create your flowers, it doesn't mean that you have to use an ink to shade it or anything like that. Just keeping them solid and using the same colors or maybe two different colors will absolutely add the same amount of dimension and texture than if you do use an ink. Here are those glossy eggshell pearls again, and they're just going to fill in areas of my cake. I was very tempted to fill in all of the circles that I had, but I didn't want to cover the backdrop that I used behind my shimmer paper for my cake. So I only chose a few areas where I set in place my pearls. So I do have a little bit of the accents. And of course I used the pearls for the center of my 3 flowers down in the bottom right hand corner. And that is our second card of the Happy Collection. So once again, as I said, I'm speeding these up because I'm taking 2 videos and merging them. So you can see I've done all of my die cutting except for these 2 pieces. I'm going to get my sentiment ready and the scallop circle. But you can see all of the others, the flowers and the flourishes, I kept white. And I am not going to use any ink on them. I'm going to keep them white. I did want the white in the back of my Nina Desert Storm cardstock that I'm using, and I am going around the edge with my vintage photo, only because some of that white was showing because of the edge, so I wanted to dull that down, and I went around my scalloped. The banner and the scallop will be propped up. The scallop, I used some fun foam to prop that up, and for the sentiment, It's Your Day, I'm going to use double-sided foam squares to prop that up. So here's where I'm thinking, like, you know what? I should probably get this on my card base instead of building it now because this could be an issue. But of course, I'm going to curl the flowers first. So again, using the same tool. And again, you can use anything. Now, the white gel pens that we've been using, they have a great tip. You can see that round edge, and you can see it does the same thing, the tool that I have that I was using. So anything with a curved top will work just fine. I'm working directly on my standard A2 size card base. It is a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm just going to set these pieces directly down. Now that they're set, now I'm going to have fun with the flourishes, and I'm just going to build off of the scallop. So some things are going to overhang, a lot of it is going to stay directly onto that base. Now, where all of these corners are matching, they will be covered up because I will be putting all of the flowers down onto the one side of the scalloped. And I really wanted this full, so that's why I'm using all 5 flowers that I have cut and curled up. So now I'm just playing around with the placement just to make sure that it looks full but not unbalanced, if that makes sense. Sometimes, even though you're using an odd number, it could still be off. But we were actually doing very well here. So I just put a little bit of glue down on a scratch piece of paper so that I could just dip the end of my leaves, my leaf stems in there, just to give it some dimension. And this one I'm just going to go directly down on the front, let that one stick out. But I'm just going to use my tool that I've been using just to make sure that it gets stuck onto the scallop piece that we have there. So again, you can see I used all white cardstock, and you can see the beautiful dimension that you get, the texture that you get, even though you didn't use any inks to give shading. Now, of course, the glossy pearls are coming back because they must be the center of my flowers. I think they just add a really nice touch, a little bit of sparkle without overdoing it. And of course, I'm having a problem with this one. So we just added more glue, and we finally get that up into the flower. Sometimes we argue with things. I'm using my wax pencil. It's not a white colored pencil. It's actually a wax pencil. I get mine through Amazon, and they are actually used by nail artists. People that add gems to nails for nail designs. And that is our final card from the Happy Collection. So you can see all of the wonderful dimension and texture that you get with those. I do hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will hop along with us and be a part of the celebration. Now, don't forget, go to my blog so that you can see all of the other wonderful designers as well for this celebration. But there is going to be a giveaway. So to celebrate this release, Spellbinders is giving away a $50 gift certificate to 3 lucky blog readers. Now, they're going to be selected from the comments across all of the blogs in the hop. This giveaway is going to close Sunday, April 7th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The winners will be announced on their blog hop post on the following Monday. Just please remember that the winner is responsible for shipping, costs, duties, taxes, all of that fun stuff. Okay, so please remember that. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. These comments down on this video do not go for the giveaway. Go to my blog. Go to my blog. But I will get back to you as soon as I can if you have any. All the products that I used will, of course, be listed down below as well if you wanted to check them out and just see what they are all about. I thank you so much for stopping by and watching the video. If you haven't already, I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. You don't want to miss the next one. Here are a few other videos featuring Spellbinder products I thought you might like. Again, enjoy the rest of your day, take care, and always remember what's most important. Always be creative.